So how can I encourage you to reduce your spending? And I can't. Only you can. What's up, folks? It's your boy Abdul with another financial video for you guys to enjoy today. In today's video, I am going to be going over 5 ways to be able to save more money. Now, a lot of people have been struggling to be able to save in 2024, and there's a lot of things that factor in, right? Like inflation, the economy, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. But regardless of whether the economy is not doing well or inflation is hitting you, you want to know the basics, right? The foundation, because regardless of what the economic condition is right now, it's not like it's not going to get better in the future. And most of the time, it actually does. So, with that being said, I want to give you the 5 ways you can actually start saving more money efficiently and also avoid mistakes that 90% of people actually make. Now, I used to be one of those people until I learned some processes to put in place and I got better. And I know my background is actually finance, right? I have a degree in finance, and my egoness thought, "Oh, you know what? I could just do it in my head. I keep all my budgeting and all my expenses. I could just do it in my head. I'll be fine." Turns out, no, I wasn't fine. I needed to have a method and a process in place. And when I put the method and process in place, trust me when I said my savings improved and I was able to keep more of my money. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into it. Now, for those of you that are new to my channel, welcome. And thank you, of course, for clicking on this video and choosing to better improve your finance, right? That's great on your part. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, my name is Abdul. I worked in the financial industry for 10 years, and I work with some of the top asset management companies in the world as an investment advisor. So I know a thing or two about investing and finance, and my goal is just really to share that knowledge with you, but to also make you better, right? Because the more knowledge you have, the more confidence you have to take action, right? And that's really what I want you to get at all the videos that I make is I want you to take action. I want you to take those steps to improve your personal finance. So let's get to it. Let's talk about the methods. Okay, so method number one, tracking your spending and expenses. Now, this may seem obvious, but that's just one of the hard things to do, right? Because life happens, you're going about your day, you're going about, living, and you have to keep track of your expenses, right? Because that's one of the key aspects of personal finance, how well you're managing your money, right? You have money coming in from your work, but how well are you being a good steward of what you have and actually maximizing it, okay? And one of the process that a lot of people trip over is this first process, right? Sticking to a budget or keeping a budget or having a method in place to keep track of your expenses is something that a lot of people don't have. And this is something that you can easily implement that would drastically change the way you are actually saving, right? I used to be one of those people that try to keep it in my head, and then next thing I know, I'm like, oh, I think I spent a little bit. I may have a little bit left over in this category, right? And then you're just going through mental gymnastics trying to figure out, okay, how much did I spend in this category? Do I still have a lot left or no? Okay, let me check my bank account. But let's avoid all of that, right? Excuse me. Let's avoid all of that and just stick to a proven method that works, which is having either a budgeting tool in place, such as a budgeting app that you can use, an Excel spreadsheet that if you're comfortable using an Excel spreadsheet, that's a great way. But once you have that budgeting method in place, guess what you get to do? You get to categorize your expenses. And once you categorize your expenses and you're keeping track of how much you're spending in each category, you can easily see where a lot of your money is going, right? And then guess what? You're now able to take the action step of saying, okay, maybe I can cut back in this category this month. Now, what a lot of people don't realize, and I've actually done this in helping people put together budgets, is that a lot of people spend money on going out to eat. I mean, that's one of like the Achilles heels of a lot of young people, right? It's like I go out to eat most of the time, and they do not realize how much money they actually save when they actually go to the grocery store, buy their food, and actually make it themselves. Now, I know that process may be complicated and hard for some people. Like, look, Abdul, I'm not really a great cook. I don't trust my cooking. I might die if I eat the food I cook. Okay, if it's you, I understand. But you still want to find ways to be able to cut back on those unnecessary expenses that you may have in your budget and that allows you to be able to save more and put more money away at the end of the month, because then you're going to have more money to yourself. Okay. So first method, track your spending utilizing a budgeting tool or an Excel spreadsheet. And actually, here's some nuggets for you guys if you don't realize. A lot of your banking apps that you use or your bank accounts that you have a budgeting tool. So take the time and look to see what tools that your bank has for you to be able to use, especially if you're using, like, even if you have a credit card and you're using a credit card with your to pay for expenses, which I don't encourage, because you can easily find yourself overspending each month because of your credit card. That's why I really encourage you to stick with your debit card and spending just what you have coming in a month and not utilizing a credit card, especially if you know that you're not really good at managing that. So you could check your bank, and they probably have a budgeting tool that you can utilize, or you can use Excel spreadsheet, right? So once you have that down, make sure you're keeping track of the categories in which you're spending money, and find ways to be able to cut back on some of the unnecessary categories that you may have. Okay, so that's tip number one. Let's move on to tip number two. Tip number two, set savings goal. Now, you can't achieve a goal if you don't have a target. Think about it, right? I mean, if you want to lose weight, you usually set a goal as to how much weight you want to lose. And you keep track of whether you're losing that weight and getting to that target weight that you want. Same thing goes for savings. You got to have a savings goal, okay? How much do you want to save? Why do you want to save? What are you trying to accomplish in the long run? And once you have that understanding, then you could put together plans and strategies to be able to get to that goal, right? So we've already established that, hey, we need to keep track of our spending. Okay, we're keeping track of our spending because we have a savings goal, and that savings goal is to, for example, I want to put money away over time to build up my investment account so that I can generate passive income later on. Okay, that is a goal. How much do you want to start off with? Well, I want to be able to put away $700 each month. Okay, great. So that's our target. And so now we have to think back as to, okay, what are my expenses? And is there places I can cut back in my expenses in order to be able to save that $700 each month that I want to put away into my investment account to start investing so that I can generate passive income later on down the road? See that train of thought there? I said it. I have a target. My budgeting tool, keeping track of my expenses, helps me stay on target. And then I have a place to go, right? I'm working towards $700 each month, putting into my savings account, my investment account, in order to build it up to be able to generate passive income when it's invested, right? Okay, great. We have that. But let's take it a step further, okay? Now, we have different kinds of goals when it comes to savings. We have short-term goals, we have midterm goals, and we have long-term goals. Short-term goal, 1 to 3 years, usually, right? Sometimes it could be like, usually it's one to 3 years. Midterm, you're probably looking at 4 to 10. Sometimes midterm can start at 5 to 10, and then you can have a short-term goal that starts at like 1 to 5 years, right? But your midterm, let's say 5 to 10, okay? Then you have your long-term goal, right? And your long-term goal is any goal really above 10 years, right? That's when you're really dealing with some long-term goals, okay? And generating passive income for later on, like your savings for retirement, that's actually passive income that you're saving to generate passive income for you later on. So with that goal, that's a long-term goal. That's more than 10 years. That's probably 40 years for some, 30 years for some, 20 years for some, right? Depending on what stage you are in life. Now, with each goal, okay, whether it be a short-term goal, midterm goal, or long-term goal, there's different strategies to be put in place for that, right? For example, a short-term goal may be, I want to save for an emergency savings. I want to be able to put away 3 to 6 months. You're probably going to put that into the strategy being a savings account or a money market account because you want it to be liquid and you don't want your money to be at risk when it comes to it being in the market. So you have a short-term goal of 1 to 5 years or 1 to 3 years. And in this case, here is to build up your emergency savings fund. And you want to build it up to, let's say, 3 months. Okay. You've set your goal, you set your parameters. It's a goal target of 3 months of worth of your monthly expenses. And the account you're going to use is a savings account or a money market account. You see how defined we're getting? And then the amount you're going to be saving each month is $700 because that's all you can do for right now. Okay, great. You've literally defined your goal and you defined the account you're going to put the money in. You've defined the amount that you're going to work towards, right? And pause. Here's the thing. We just said that we wanted to save three months of our for emergency savings. Well, guess what? In order to be able to know how much you want to save for 3 months, right? What is 3 months of your monthly expenses? Guess what you're going to need to do? You're going to have to go back to step 1 and keep track of your expenses. See how this comes full circle? If you're not keeping track of your expenses, how can you work on this goal of building a short-term savings goal for your emergency savings? You can't, because you don't know how much you're spending. But now that you do know how much you're spending, now you have a goal target. Okay, so let's move on to method number 3, which is determining how much to save. Now, we touched base on this in the other methods, but let's go a little bit further in depth, okay, and really unpack the ways you can actually start saving much more efficiently when it comes to how much you want to be able to save. So I made the example of saving $700 for each month once you figure out how much your expenses are and how much you can actually have left over. Okay, now there's another way to be able to do it, an easier way. Okay, now this does come with having a good budgeting method in place, and this method of budgeting is called the 50-30-20 rule. I like this method. I use this method when it comes to savings, and it's so much easier for me to save. It's a no-brainer because here's how it works. I have 50% for my expenses. I've got 30% for my wants, and then I have 20% for my savings. So automatically, I already know that 20% of my income is going to automatically go to savings, no matter what. 50% going to my expenses, 30% going to my wants. However way that it ends up being spent, that's okay. At least I've saved 20% of my income. Okay. And maybe as you go through, you realize, wait, you know what? I don't really have much wants this month. I can actually increase my savings for this month, right? And maybe I'll add another 5%. So instead of doing 30% for my wants, I might just do 25% for my wants and add another 5% for my savings and make that 25% of my paycheck for that month. Okay. But at least you have that concept, that budgeting concept of that 50-30-20, where it's like, okay, 50% goes to my expenses, 30% goes to my wants, and 20% I'm just going to keep in savings. Great. Done. No brainer. You don't have to think about it. It's that simple. Okay. And you could take it a step further, which is another budgeting process that I like to use to be able to save more money, is paying myself first. So we've already went through the 50-30-20 rule, right? But let's go ahead and flip it and say, okay, even before my money comes into my bank account to spend, and I have to take 20% out into my savings, I'm just going to automatically do that from the beginning, right? I'm going to have an automatic deposit into my savings or investment account or brokerage account, whatever I have, of that 20%, so that I don't even see it going into my checking account to be able to spend, right? So usually this is how I do it, okay? I would have a direct deposit from my employer go into my savings automatically, right? So I'll basically split up my checks, and so that I will have some going into my checkings, and then the 20% going into my savings, and then the rest actually going into my checkings. That's how I would actually have it done. Now, that is the easy way to actually start saving each month. If you put that process in place, you're not going to have a hard time saving at all. Now, let's move on to method number 4, making a budget. Now, we actually kind of alluded to this one already, method number 4, when it comes to making a budget, which is, if you notice, that's like the going trend between all of the different methods. The foundation is the budget. If you don't have a budget as a foundation, how do you know how much you're going to need to save? So it really all comes in full circle and says it all starts with the budget, right? So we talked about the 30-20, the 50-30-20 rule budgeting. We talked about the pay yourself method of budgeting, where you pay yourself first before any of your expenses. And then there's the zero-based budget, right? Basically, every dollar has a name, right? So that means that before your paycheck comes in, you already know where the money is going. You already know how much is being allocated. And then once the money comes in, you allocate the dollars to those categories. That's pretty much a zero-based budget, is because at the end of the month, you're supposed to have pretty much $0 in your account, because all of it has already been spent. All of it has already gone out to the specific categories, and that's pretty much about it. The rest, of course, if you have something left over, goes into savings. The cycle begins again. That's usually what that zero-based budget method means. So with that budgeting method, whichever one you choose, and really, it's really up to you. I'm not saying don't do the zero-based budget. Don't do, the pay yourself budget and just do the 50-30-20 rule budget, right? It's really up to you as to which one you want to do. And you can do both. I do both, right? I do the pay yourself first, and I apply the 50-30-20 rule. That's how I do it. So you can do it that way or whichever way you're comfortable with. All right. So let's move on to method number 5. Now, reduce your spending. I know it kind of sounds obvious, like, okay, no duh, I'm going to reduce my spending. But you will not believe how hard it is for some people to reduce their spending. So how can I encourage you to reduce your spending? And I can't. Only you can. Because you know what the vision is for your future. You know what the vision is for your financial future. And I'm actually going to be talking about a book that really helped me with this. When it comes to visioning yourself in the future. It's called Be the Future You Now. But for me, what I do, I can share with you what I do, is I say to myself, okay, if I choose to spend this money now when I don't really need to, my future self is going to pay the price. Okay. And there's no better way for me to paint this picture for you than to tell your story about some conversation that I've had in the past with clients that I spoke to about retirement planning. And it doesn't become such a reality until you're in that moment, right? Where it's like, oh, wow, all the decisions I've made in the past is now catching up to me. So story time. Okay. So I had a client that called in that was really trying to figure out how they can actually deal with this retirement thing, right? Because they're getting at the age where they didn't want to work anymore, and they were tired and they wanted to stop working. And so they were trying to figure out, well, how can I do that? And the money that I have saved, is it enough to be able to actually retire on? And unfortunately, she didn't build her savings enough to be able to retire on. She didn't have much in a 401k. She didn't have much in an IRA. I don't remember if she even had an IRA. But it was sad because, I had to tell her, hey, look, the amount of money you saved isn't going to be enough to generate that passive income for you to retire on. Because essentially what you're doing is the actions you're taking now in the present you, right? It's going to affect your future you. And in this case, it affected her future you by not having enough for the future you to actually enjoy and relax. So that right there is a clear sign as to why you should really think about the financial decisions you're making today, because they are going to affect you in the long run. And for her, the financial decision she was making was not saving enough, right? Because in the end, her savings were what she was going to rely on to live on. Okay. Well, we said, well, I can have multiple businesses. That's great. That's you thinking about the future you. That's you thinking about, okay, how can I set myself up where I'm going to be able to generate multiple streams of income, whether it be my business, whether it be my investments, whether it be whatever a venture that I choose to do that's going to give me multiple streams of income. In this case, for her, she only had one. But the crazy part is that one stream of income she had, which was her job, she could have used that to build another multiple stream of income later on down the road. Yes, some people don't have the entrepreneurial skills, and some people don't want to be entrepreneurs, right? They just want to work for a corporation or a company. Well, right there, you have one income. So the question you have to ask yourself is, okay, if I have one income, what can I do to put myself in a good position in order to be able to generate another passive stream of income for later on down the road once this income stream dies out, right? And that usually happens when people fizzle out and say, okay, I'm sick and tired of doing this job. I'm tired. I don't want to do it anymore. It's taxing on my body. Whatever it may be, you may want to transition, right? And if that's the case, what is your transition plan? And do you have another stream of income to be able to help you with that transition plan? And in this case for her, she didn't have one. She only had one. And the one that she had, she needed to maximize in order to build up for the other stream of income. So that's really what I have for you guys, right? When it comes to the 5 methods of savings, if you follow those principles there, you're going to be just fine, right? And you can see the going theme: budgeting, having a goal target, making a sacrifice to achieve that goal target. Okay, you're budgeting, you're saving. I want to save for a down payment for a home. I want to save for retirement. I want to save for my emergency savings fund. I need to make the sacrifice to be able to save. I have one stream of income. I need to cut back on my expenses to be able to save more. Okay, to be able to do that, I utilize my budget to do that. So that's it. If you follow those process, if you follow that process, trust me, you're going to be fine. You're going to be just fine. And my goal, of course, with all my videos is to keep it simple. So thank you for watching. See you in the next video.